All right, so analysis of the 49ers schedule release is not finished until after we have a chance to see other teams' schedules, particularly the schedules of the 49ers opponents. So it started at 5 p.m. Pacific with the 49ers schedule release. I had that prepared for you. Hopefully, you've already watched that video. You had a similar graphic or the same graphic as you see right now. But at that time, I hadn't yet been exposed to the schedules of the teams that the 49ers would be playing. So I didn't know about the rest advantage or disadvantage that the 49ers might have in this season. Rest disadvantage or advantage comes from bye weeks. Say that you play on a Sunday. Did you play the prior Sunday? Okay. If you played the prior Sunday, then obviously you had 6 days of rest in between games. But if your opponent did not play on the prior Sunday, if they had a bye week or if they played on the prior Thursday, well, then all of a sudden you're at a rest disadvantage versus your opponent. If you had a bye week and your opponent didn't have one, then you are at a rest advantage. They call this the net rest advantage or disadvantage. And the 49ers this year are actually in the negative. Guy Haberman added it up. They've got the advantage against Miami and Tampa Bay, but they've got disadvantages in a lot of situations, including 4 bye weeks for good opponents, dangerous opponents, before they play the 49ers. The Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Bills, and the Seahawks are all coming off bye weeks before playing the 49ers. The 49ers do have a Thursday night game before they play Kansas City, which means they have a little bit of extra rest compared to if they had the Sunday game. You could see that on the schedule right here. So before the 49ers play the Chiefs, they play on October 10th at Seattle. So they do have that weekend to recuperate, but Kansas City doesn't play that weekend at all. The Dallas Cowboys don't play the weekend before the 49ers play them at all, and the 49ers have to play the Chiefs. And I think the toughest of all of these is Buffalo. 49ers have to play them on December 1st. Buffalo doesn't have to play at all on November 24th. Meanwhile, the 49ers are going to be in Green Bay. The cold is tough on your body. So the 49ers are going to have to play in Green Bay, hard-fought game, probably in the cold on November 24th. In almost all likelihood, they're going to fly back home because it's Thanksgiving in between those two games. So cross-country flight back to the Bay Area and then flight back out to Buffalo, Eastern time zone this time. Green Bay is in Central time zone to play the Bills, who have rest. The week before the Green Bay games, the Seattle game, November 17th, Seattle has a bye on November 10th. The 49ers, one big bye advantage comes on that November 10th game. They're going to be coming off the bye against nobody, bye after they play the Cowboys, but they're going to be coming off the bye. Tampa doesn't have a bye. And also that game against Tampa is coming off the Buccaneers have to play Monday Night Football against the Chiefs in week 9. So one less day of rest for Tampa. All in all, it adds up to what Guy Haberman calculated here, a net minus 16 rest day differential. 49ers also have an advantage later in the season against Miami. When you look at, I talked about this in the initial video. I'll play that here in a second. Miami and Tampa Bay both happen in December, which I think the 49ers are happy about because they can go to Florida when it's not quite as hot. Now, on the flip side, they have to go to Green Bay on November 24th and Buffalo on December 1st. The minus 16 net rest disadvantage, the 49ers had a fairly big one last year as well. I think it was somewhere around minus 20 at the start of the season. They were not happy about it. They're not going to be happy about it this year. There are some pluses to the schedule, and I got to that in the earlier video, which we'll replay here in a second so we can hit all of that stuff concisely. One of the pluses, just to tease to it, is that they don't have 3 consecutive road games. They don't have these long road trips. And I think it's relatively balanced as far as quality goes. But the minus that shows up in the rest disadvantage. And I'm sure that the 49ers are not happy about that. All right. So one more look here at the 49ers schedule. We'll take a look at the 49ers own version of the schedule. This is the one that they released up on their website. How about all those schedule release videos? I feel that's a tradition now of schedule release day. The teams are trying to one-up each other with schedule release videos. 49ers, Steph Sanchez did a great job. Nick Bosa impersonation. She made it big time. Got invited into the 49ers facility. Go and check that one out. And this is what the 49ers themselves released. By the way, the Titans, that's the preseason opener. I'm actually doing this show right now from Nashville. So we'll see you from this studio before and after the 49ers play the Tennessee Titans in the preseason opener. Then it's the Saints. Reportedly, the 49ers will have joint practices with the Saints down in Irvine, though, not in the Bay Area. In Irvine, then the game is going to happen at Levi's. So both teams will fly up the coast. And then they're headed to Vegas for preseason game number 3 against the Raiders. Anyway, here we go. Let's go back to the original video as the 49ers are heading into this 2024 season with a schedule. 2024 San Francisco 49ers schedule has been released, and much to the chagrin of many, there is no London game. The New York Jets are going to be headed to London to face the Minnesota Vikings instead of the 49ers. San Francisco must head to Minneapolis again for the second straight year in week 2 to play the Vikings. But that's not all terrible news. Those of you who like burgers, you'll be able to head to Matt's Bar and Grill in Minneapolis to check out the local specialty, the Juicy Lucy at Matt's. The molten cheese inside the burger itself. If you want a video of what that looks like, this is from the Tuesday after last year's Monday Night Football game. There you go. The Juicy Lucy at Matt's. You can have it in Minneapolis when you go to watch the 49ers this year. Anyway, back to the schedule. We're going to go through this week by week. We're going to break it down the only way that we can break it down, and that is thoroughly. The 49ers 2024 schedule. As you can see, it does open up against the New York Jets. We already knew that yesterday. So Aaron Rodgers, who's only played a handful of snaps for the Jets, is going to make his way to Levi's Stadium. We're also going to see Robert Saleh. We'll see Solomon Thomas. We'll see Javon Kinlaw. Might see Isaiah Oliver, who's currently on the Jets. That is a Monday Night Football game. That is one of 6 Monday Night Football games for the 49ers, or 6 primetime games. 2 Monday night games, 2 Sunday night games, and 2 Thursday night games for the 49ers, which is not great, I think, for the rest balance over the course of the season. They're one of the few teams with 2 Thursday night games, but they're the team with 6 primetime games. That is the most in the NFL. And that first primetime game is going to come with the season opener against the New York Jets. If you go down the schedule, you'll see that it's at Minnesota, as I just showed you with the Juicy Lucy's, in week 2. And then it's a trip to LA to face the Rams in week 3. The home games on this schedule are highlighted in yellow or gold, and the away games are highlighted in red. As you can see, there are no stretches of more than 2 games, home or away, on this 49ers schedule, which I do think is relevant, which I do think is potentially beneficial to the football team. Once you start being away from home for 3 weeks, it's if you go on a slide, it hurts your chances of getting right, because it's harder to win on the road than it is to win at home. So I think that's one thing. But 2, you also ensure that you get better travel balance, better mileage balance if you're the 49ers. And for a team that's based on the West Coast, I think that's really important to keep in mind. This is the total mileage that is going to be traveled by each team this year. Last season, the 49ers were the 2nd highest in the league. They're just short of 30,000 miles. They're just behind the Seattle Seahawks. This year, the 49ers are number 5. 24,575 miles traveled for the 49ers, down from nearly 30,000. So that's gotten a little bit better logistically, and they don't have these long stretches where they're traveling every single week. Now, a lot of people always wonder, will the 49ers stay over on the East Coast or in the Central Time Zone, Florida, somewhere in between 2 games that are away from home? So we always look at the schedule when it first comes out to see if there's an opportunity to stay over. And the first thing when we saw the opponents a few months ago that we thought of was, maybe the NFL will give the 49ers the 2 Florida games at Miami and at Tampa back-to-back. That has not happened. Tampa's on November 10th. Miami's on December 22nd. So that means 2 separate trips to Florida will be needed. However, there are 2 straight road games for the 49ers in weeks 12 and 13 at Green Bay and at Buffalo. One is in the central time zone, Green Bay. The second is in the eastern time zone, Buffalo, New York. That's November 24th and December 1st. However, Thanksgiving falls on the Thursday between those 2 games. And based on what I understand, it is highly, highly unlikely that the 49ers stay over on the East Coast or in the central or eastern time zones in between those 2 games. So this mileage total will likely be accurate. The 49ers, 24,575 travel miles, number 5 in the NFL. All things considered, for a team based on the far West Coast, that's not bad. You're naturally going to have to fly long distances if you're on the West Coast because things are stretched out. And then obviously the 49ers are playing a lot of teams from the AFC East this year. That's the division that they drew from the AFC. So that naturally has led to quite a bit of travel, but not quite as much as last year. So back to this, no stretches of longer than 2 games, either home or away for the 49ers. You've got the Patriots and Arizona coming to town in weeks 4 and 5. Then you have that first Thursday night game, the first of 2 Thursday night games at Seattle, week 6. The quick turnaround, right? October 6th to October 10th. That's not going to be easy, but the 49ers do have supposedly a softer NFC West opponent, but you just never know how good these teams are actually going to be. It's the NFL. Things change quickly, so they'll have to be able to buckle down and get ready quickly for Seattle. Then comes week 7 and 8, the Chiefs and the Cowboys at home. I've got a quick little question about the toughest stretch that I'm going to pose in a second, and you can bet that that's going to be part of this discussion because Kansas City, that's a marquee matchup, Super Bowl rematch at Levi's Stadium on October 20th, followed by the Dallas Cowboys coming into town for a Sunday night football game on October 27th. The bye week is right in the middle of the season for the 49ers, which is just the way they like it. In 2019, they had a bye in week 4. So they played 3 games and they went straight into a bye. Kyle Shanahan wasn't a fan of that. Nobody was a fan of that. You want to be able to lick your wounds halfway through. That way that you get that boost. And the goal is to get another bye after week 18 before the divisional round of the playoffs. 49ers accomplished that with the number 1 seed last year. So if they can have equidistant byes throughout the course of this campaign, the 49ers will be happy. They just have to earn that bye that is coming up after the end of the regular season. That's one that's not guaranteed, but that's one that they can get during the wild card round. After the bye, they fly to Tampa, then back home against Seattle, then off to Green Bay and Buffalo for that 2-game stretch that I talked about, but a return home in between each for Thanksgiving. The Bears and the Rams visit following that. Now, remember here, 2 Thursday night games. The Rams on December 12th are coming off of very short rest, as are the 49ers, leaving that game against the Bears. So the 49ers have 2 division games on Thursday night, and I think that may help even things out, make it a little bit more fair. Yes, the 49ers have 2 division games, but each time they're playing an NFC West team. So that NFC West team is going to have to also deal with a Thursday night game in that situation. 49ers will leave that Thursday night game against the Rams, and that sets up a game in Miami on December 22nd. We talk about Miami. Well, that could be a potential good weather break. You can head to Miami in September and really just swelter. I mean, that's hot weather. December 22nd is damn near perfect weather usually in Miami. It doesn't rain as much even in December as it does in the summer in Miami. So maybe the 49ers catch a break with the timing of that trip to Miami. If the weather is indeed really good outside, you can head out to the Rusty Pelican. This is my Miami food recommendation. The oysters, excellent food at the Rusty Pelican, which is right on the water. A little hybrid action with the food. You've got the sushi, you've got some lobster sandwiches as well. And Miami is obviously a beautiful place when the weather is clear. So you can eat at the Rusty Pelican when you are in Miami on December 22nd, right before Christmas. Rounding out the schedule for the 49ers after that is an NFC Championship game rematch. Detroit Lions are heading to Levi's Stadium on December 30th. Day, or really the night before New Year's Eve, because it is yet another primetime game, the second Monday Night Football game in Week 17. Finally, Arizona, a trip there where the 49ers actually clinched the NFC West last year. That's coming on January 4th or 5th. depending on where the NFL wants it, Saturday or Sunday. So I look at this schedule. I obviously see the 6 primetime games, but I have to zero in on week 7. That's the Kansas City Crucible. It's obviously a Super Bowl rematch, a 2-time Super Bowl rematch. The 49ers have lost to the Chiefs twice in Super Bowl 54 and Super Bowl 58. Similar to how the 49ers in the 90s lost to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game twice. They ultimately had to overcome the Dallas Crucible, get over the hump of the Cowboys. That happened in 1994 in the NFC Championship game. But what took place before that was a regular season matchup between the 49ers and the Cowboys, week 11 of that 1994 season. San Francisco won 21-14. That gave them the confidence, the swagger to be able to beat Dallas again in the NFC Championship game a couple months later. I think that you look at this Chiefs matchup in week 7 of the 2024 season, you can draw some parallels. 49ers have had, on paper, the better team than the Chiefs twice in the Super Bowl, but they've lost both times. They've got to prove to themselves that they can beat Kansas City. Will it be a must-win or the season's over? No, nobody's saying that. But will it be a win that you really want to look at and have, so that way you have that confidence, that notch in your belt as you head into the playoffs and maybe the Super Bowl against the Chiefs? Of course. I think that's the point of week 7. Tom Brady's going to call that game for Fox, by the way. That's going to be a very, very scrutinized game at Levi's. So make sure that you're locked in, and I'm sure you will be locked in on October 20th when the 49ers face the Chiefs. And, that leads me to ask, what's the toughest stretch for the 49ers in this schedule? Is it week 6 to 8 when they play Seattle on the road on Thursday, a longer rest before they face the Chiefs and the Cowboys at home? I think they'll certainly earn their stripes before that bye week in week 9. Seattle, Kansas City, Dallas, or is it weeks 12 and 13? A game at Green Bay and a game at Buffalo. Then they get to play the Bears back at home. So I don't include that in the difficult part of that stretch. But obviously the Packers are a good team and the Bills are a good team too. Both of those games are going to be on the road, and there's some bad weather potential in both of those 2 games. It's Green Bay on November 24th and Buffalo on December 1st. It could be snowy. It could be windy. It probably won't be very good weather, and that could put the 49ers at a little bit of a disadvantage, especially against somebody like Josh Allen. It's just an absolute machine out there. He's obviously got the howitzer for an arm, but yeah, he's a quarterback that was drafted to play in the poor weather of Buffalo, and the 49ers may have to face him in the poor weather of Buffalo. Or they'll get a spectacular day. You never know, but there is bad weather potential, so that's why I ask you, what's tougher, week 6 to 8 or weeks 12 to 13? Anyway, that is the 49ers schedule, all 24,575 travel miles. Gave you a couple food recommendations on the way too. It's not going to be easy for the 49ers, but if they can make it to the end, if they can grab that number 1 seed and actually win the Super Bowl this time, then it will be worth it. No London game. I know that's bad news for some people, but 49ers will have to wait for that international game another year. That's the schedule. We'll talk to you soon. And I promised I would talk to you soon. Talk to you right now. Take a look at this. While I was letting that play, we had a little bit of research. We could thank Mike for the research. The 49ers past 2 schedules, 2023 and 24, of 2 of the worst net rest differentials since 2002. This from Brian Burke, ESPN. 49ers this year, 2024, we talked about the net rest differential at the top, behind only the 2012 Eagles and the 2005 Chargers. As you can see, you go down 4, 5, 6, 7th place. The 7th toughest schedule as far as rest differential was the 2023 49ers. That was last year's 49ers. 2 years, both in the toughest 7, the worst 7 draws of the past 20 plus years in the NFL. Not easy for the 49ers, but it wasn't meant to be easy. All right. Thanks for watching. Everybody have a good night.